quality, sustainability and traceability. Welcome delegates to my MGF 5800 Global Business presentation. Today we're going to hear about my own foray around essential oils. My own fascination with essential oils came about during a trip to Bridstow Lavender Farm in Tasmania. It was during this trip I learned about the insatiable demand for natural oils in developing markets, as they had many Chinese tourists visiting the farm to purchase their essential oils. Upon further research, I'm keen to share the metrics demonstrating how Australian producers are meeting this demand through product offerings that provide a unique quality proposition and other points of difference vis-a-vis our global counterparts. So within the broad essential oil market exists several sub-markets of various natural oils, ranging from lavender to tea tree, citronella to sandalwood, to name a few. Sandalwood oil is extracted from the wood of sandalwood trees. Sandalwood trees are one of the most highly threatened, traded, and important medicinal plant species in the world, even being referred to as wood and gold by Talbot. Sandalwood is highly regarded for its fragrant oil and has a long history of cultural and economic importance in many regions of the world, including China. Sandalwood oil is an expensive essential oil owing to the infrequent natural growth areas and difficult extraction process involved. Of the 15 species of sandalwood that grow throughout the world, there are two main varieties that are traded internationally: Indian sandalwood and Australian sandalwood, which we're going to focus on. Australian sandalwood currently comprises well over half the world's legally planted sandalwood exports. The natural distribution of both Indian and Australian sandalwoods very concentrated, and due to the geographical conditions, can only be grown in a handful of regions, including Australia, India, Chile, and some Pacific Island nations. This graphic by Benny shows countries in the green and yellow being major to minor producers of Indian and Australian sandalwood, with Australia being one of only a handful of producing countries. Native to Australia, Australian sandalwood is the only desert species that grows in low rainfall areas without irrigation. It's been commercially produced and exported from Western Australia since the 1840s due to its abundant occurrence even in the harsh Australian environment. Sandalwood oil productions limited globally as illegal logging of natural sandalwood populations have sadly dwindled supply rapidly in several Asian countries. An estimated 90% of Indian sandalwood sourced from India is illegally harvested. Replanting efforts have occurred in some Asian countries, such as India, though several factors have undermined their efforts to surpass Australia's sandalwood production. As such, Indian sandalwood trees are overexploited and underconserved. Historical overharvest, slow reforestation efforts, and a lack of support for sandalwood conservation have depleted natural populations of sandalwood in those countries which are slow to regenerate. On average, it takes around 25 years for Australian sandalwood oil to mature, and thus this really limits the rate at which sandalwood can be harvested and exported. The specific climate that sandalwood grows in and the time it takes for a tree to mature highlight its scarcity and inimitability from substitute products, which importantly present barriers to entry for competitors. Australian sandalwood exporters have demonstrated for several centuries their ability to cultivate large commercial sandalwood plantations by deploying the necessary agroecology, such as nursery techniques, growth rates, and oil characteristics. This provides Australia a competitive advantage that other countries have seemingly not been able to replicate. This graph also indicates minor to major consumers of sandalwood being coloured yellow to red. This graph indicates China as being a major consumer of sandalwood, which we'll delve into now. Other limitations and challenges that limit other countries or competitors challenging Australia's competitive advantage include the need to maintain consistent quality of sandalwood oil is challenging due to variations in the oil's composition, thus meeting customer expectations can be difficult, especially for new entrants with less agroecology knowledge as Australian producers. Secondly, the cost involved with storage and transport of sandalwood oil is high, given it's a high value export, and thus can't be susceptible to instances of loss or theft. This is a key issue faced by Indian exporters of Indian sandalwood. Several Australian grown and produced sandalwood oil brands alongside Dutchan Sandalwood Oils include Mount Romance, WA Sandalwood Productions, and Sentinel Group, which are all prime examples of how Australian sandalwood oil has been able to prosper internationally, especially as they've been expanding into the Asian market, specifically China, for nearly a decade. And then lastly, climate and environmental factors such as prolonged droughts may affect production in other countries, though noting Australia's sandalwood oil is grown in an arid region in Western Australia, prospering without reliance on consistent rainfall. So given the established nature of Australian sandalwood oil market, it's consistently shown its ability to harvest, supply and export products despite adverse environmental, political or economic conditions for several centuries. These features may function as barriers to entry for competitors. Thus, one can conclude that the biggest risks to our expansion strategy are less supply related and more weighted on the demand side. To provide some contextual market background, here I've listed both the traditional markets and uses of sandalwood along with the old and emerging markets. So sandalwood, wood and powder have historically been used in the agarbatti and incense market, used for religious, cultural and medicinal purposes in China and other Asian countries. In recent years, Australian producers have explored distilling of Australian sandalwood to generate Australian sandalwood oil. The oil extracted from Australian sandalwood trees is considered unique and is preferred over other ingredients for the preparation of many high-end perfumes, cosmetics, toiletries, beauty utilities, and medicines. Other factors driving demand for sandalwood is the growing demand by consumers worldwide, such as in China, for personal and healthcare products that are eco-friendly and contain natural ingredients. From a financial standpoint, the global sandalwood market stands at $180 million as at June 2023 and is forecast to reach a market value of $285 million by the end of this year, expanding at a compound annual growth rate of 5% within the next 10 years. To spur demand, Australian sandalwood exporters such as Zhujiang would need to leverage the growing brand impression of Australian-produced sandalwood oil, whilst highlighting its unique and sustainable sourcing practices compared to global counterparts. Other points of difference include the Australian domestic industry's strong focus on ethical and sustainable sourcing practices, such as Zhujiang's specific emphasis on involving and benefiting Indigenous communities where sandalwood oil is sourced from sandalwood trees on native title lands owned and managed by local Indigenous custodians. Australian planted sandalwood oil strongly emphasise sustainable harvesting practices. Say for Zhujiang, its plantation trees are selectively harvested to ensure the long-term health of the ecosystem and to prevent overharvesting, which can be a concern in the global sandalwood industry. Zhujiang, for instance, also works with local land custodians to preserve Indigenous traditions centred around sustainability. We've also got the high quality of oil extracted processes that Australian producers use. This involves steam distilling the oil from the heartwood of the sandalwood tree, resulting in a product with a really rich, unique and desirable scent. Then last but not least, Australian sandalwood producers need to comply with sustainability planting requirements. There's a greater traceability throughout the supply chain. In summary, Australia's ethical sourcing in its production, its sustainability at the heart of what it does, leading to consistent quality, community involvement, and the preservation, importantly, of Indigenous cultures are some of the many factors that make the industry an attractive choice for consumers who value responsible and sustainable production practices when purchasing this quality product. So let's look now at reasons supporting a push into China. Whilst Zhujiang Sandalwood Oils and its Australian sandalwood peers currently export smaller qualities of sandalwood to China, there are multiple proof points that emphasise the commercial opportunities for Australian sandalwood oil to expand market share within the Chinese market. So let's examine some reasons why to be commercially viable. For one, China has no native sandalwood. Therefore, to satisfy demand, Chinese consumers need to source sandalwood oil abroad. China has, secondly, for several decades been or centuries actually, a historical importer of Australian sandalwood products, especially for furniture, carvings and incense. Thus, sandalwood oil presents new uses for sandalwood, given that long-held historical association. Thirdly, with China's growing middle and upper class, by 2040, it'll need at least 100 megatons of oil per annum for use in medicines, perfumes, body care products. And there are estimates that say annual perfume sales, so just one part of the market segment, will be around US 1.2 billion as the perfume market in China grows and matures. We also note that sandalwood oil is an important ingredient in traditional Chinese medicine, and this supply to this product use will increase the sandalwood supplies prosper and become more reliable through the sustainable Australian grown plantations. Then looking at some factors as to the benefits Australia would experience in pursuing this trade relationship include, so similar to my observation at the lavender farm, Chinese tourists travelled from overseas to visit the farm and purchase lavender oil. Thus, with effective marketing, sandalwood plantations could likewise benefit from ecotourism from Chinese tourists who visit their farm and take home some Australian sandalwood oil. Increased opportunities this ecotourism would provide would equate to a substantial boost to Australia's economy. It has the potential to boost rural economies, to create jobs and enhance the livelihoods of Indigenous communities involved in sandalwood cultivation. By exporting a unique and high quality product such as Australian sandalwood oil, Australia can really diversify its trade portfolio. It can reduce its dependency on conventional exports such as raw materials from mining, and this diversification can enhance Australia's economic reliance and strengthen Australia and China's overall bilateral relationship. Then lastly, Australia is home to some of the finest sandalwood species. Ergo, by promoting responsible cultivation and extraction practices, we can ensure the sustainability of this valuable resource. Proper management can prevent overexploitation, protect biodiversity, and preserve delicate ecosystems, aligning both countries' commitments to environmental preservation. All in all, the prospects of exporting more sandalwood to China are indeed promising. By capitalizing on the growing demand for natural products, fostering cultural exchange, and promoting sustainability products and practices, Australia can elevate its trade relationship with China to new heights. This endeavour isn't just about commerce, it's about building bridges between the two nations, nurturing our shared values, and creating a sustainable and prosperous future. As we stand at the crossroads of opportunity, let us envisage the harmonious aroma of sandalwood oil blending cultures, economies, and environments for the betterment of both Australia and China. So we've investigated this opportunity thoroughly, providing rationale around the market and country export choice. Now, next steps involve considering key political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental considerations. We've captured these nuances with an additional presentation pack, which we will walk you through when we meet next on Friday. So thank you again for your time. Look forward to speaking with you soon. Here are some reference materials justifying this discussion. Thanks so much.